Juan Soto can truly rot in hell. Juan Soto officially goes from playing in front of the bleacher creatures to playing in front of people wearing coordinated orange shirts with fanny packs and bad acting today. I have never seen a player lose this much aura in my life. Soto makes me ashamed to be Dominican. Really? Really? Oh boy. Okay, roll the music.
Orange and blue running through our veins, rooting for the METS through incidents and pains. It's a METS podcast hosted by Michael Bay, science, views and ideas so fortified. Let's do saves, injuries and wins. We can't wait for the next game to begin. This is the theme song to Mike's METS podcast. This is the theme song to Mike's METS podcast. Orange and blue running through our veins.
Hello, welcome to Mike's METS Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pashota, and a very happy Saturday to you all. Not sure if this is coming out Saturday or Sunday, but I guess we'll find out. So, we have had one hell of a week as Met fans. Once again, the huge news, mega news. I don't even know what you could call it kind of news. It is amazing. That's a good word for it. Let's go with the amazing news for the New York Mets. The Mets have signed Juan Soto. That is official to his monster deal. 15 years, $765 million. Wow. So we are in, it is a brand new territory for the New York Mets franchise. We have done what many thought was impossible, what Steve Cohen thought was impossible, and when you have that much money, there isn't much that you don't think you can do. But Cohen didn't think he could do it. He didn't think he could sign Juan Soto. And as it turns out, if you offer enough money, people will be interested. So there was obviously other things that are playing into or factoring into Soto's decision to come to the Mets, and I've played out all that before with what possible scenarios, situations have come to mind, and these are all things that do play a part in what I think Soto is interested in. But let's put all that aside for now. What we experienced this week was unbridled joy as Met fans. This was an incredible one of the greatest moments in the history of the franchise, and coming off an amazing season. It felt like a perfect bookend to the year, where everything started off very gloomy, and it didn't feel like this was going to be a team that was going to have any kind of meaningful situations late in the year. As it turns out, we had one of the greatest seasons in Met history, and to put a pin on it, we now have one of the greatest players in Major League Baseball, not just of this generation, but really any generation, and it's an amazing time. Raining on the parade has been some very negative, responses from New York Yankees fans who have taken it upon themselves to see if they can do anything they can to crash the moment for Mets fans, and it's been kind of tough. I'm more wired in probably than most people in terms of like what I'm like reading, and I do pay attention to what's being commented and what's being posted. And what we are seeing is just a new level of psychological tactics from Yankees fans who are trying to really dismiss and make it seem like what the Mets have done is essentially nothing. like that, like, oh well, you acquired Juan Soto, good for you. It is good for us. It is great. It's great for us. And if you're not seeing that, I don't really know what to tell you, other than you're lying, and also shut up. This is, I don't know how far beyond the Met hemisphere. I assume mostly Met fans are the ones who subscribe and follow this podcast. So I don't know how far this goes out into the world and how far any Yankee fans are possibly listening to this. But I want you to know that I'm painting with a broad brush here, and that's totally okay. Because if you are not one of these people who has been negging the situation and trying to diminish what has been an amazing moment for the New York Mets franchise and for the New York Mets fan base, then it's okay. Please don't make it feel like I really don't want it to seem like I'm making you as part of like this contingent of villains. I have Yankee fans in my life. They're friends. Some of them are family. It's okay. I get it. You grew up with them, so be it. I don't really care. So I know there are some people who have a very broad view of this. They are able to view it with a larger perspective. They are able to view it with a little bit more of humility, because this is not a great moment for the New York Yankees franchise. And when you have someone say, "I don't want to be with you anymore," and move on to someone else, it doesn't feel great. And we've all been in that position in our own lives where we've had somebody say, "This is it for us. I'm going to move on to someone else." Now, if I was going to continue this this further, let's say there are two brothers, and one brother is older and more successful generally, and the younger brother, he's fun, but generally doesn't have a lot going on in life, but has started to turn things around, and now all of a sudden, it's starting to look like a little bit more of a positive situation with the younger brother. And then the older brother is dating this 10 out of 10 wonderful girl who looks like an absolute smoke show, and everyone's in love with her, and older brother's in love with her also. And then this girl dumps the older brother. And then, to make matters worse, decides to hook up with the younger brother. And not just hook up, they're actually going to make a go of it. They're going to get engaged. They're going to stay together for the next 15 years, or however long they're both going to be around for. And this is it. This is their new relationship, and older brother ain't having it. And older brother starts trying to neg the younger brother and say, have you seen the way that she runs? Have you seen the way that she eats her food? And first of all, I would be like, I'm not dating her for her running ability. I don't care how she eats her food. There's no reason for any of this. Just stop. And then older brother's like, well, you know what? She's been getting kind of fat. I don't know if you noticed that. And I'm like, it's not the case. She was just wearing a sweater underneath her jersey. This whole metaphor is kind of falling apart. But what I'm trying to say is this. There is no reason for what we've been hearing for the last week, which is just Yankee fans speaking out of their feelings. And what they want to really kind of drive home is that they're better off without JUAN SOTO. And, they're not. This is a situation for the Yankees that they've never been in. This is like what it would be if A-Rod had left after they made that trade back in, where it was, 2002, 2003, when they traded Alfonso Soriano and a bunch of other people over to the Rangers for Rodriguez, and then Rodriguez just bolted right after that. He didn't sign an extension. He left for free agency and did probably what he was going to do in this case, which was either go to the Mets or the Red Sox. The parallels are very eerie, and I think A-Rod's a good comparison point for what Soto is, because A-Rod was not like the best player in the world. Soto is obviously not a multi-time MVP. Rodriguez was already an MVP in 2001. So there is a little bit of a difference. Part of it is just that Soto is just not like the kind of player that A-Rod was. He's not the kind of player that Judge is now. So people often try to like look at his accomplishments and say, well, what has he actually really done? And the answer is a lot. Soto is one of the most decorated players in the league. Besides the fact that he's a four-time All-Star and former I guess the bag title technically counted from 2020. There is a lot that he has on his resume, especially being that he is a experienced postseason player that we saw obviously in 2024, but also in 2019 when he was part of the Washington Nationals and was. Obviously won a World Series title that year as well. So what they're hoping for in this case is Soto to be, despite his age, and he will be 26 at the start of the season, of the upcoming season anyway. This is going to be a situation where he's going to be one of their more experienced players because he's just been around for a long time, and he's seen a lot of different situations and has come out of it looking great. I mean, the way he wrapped up his whole experience pre-free agency was just amazing, and I'm not going to go into it for too long, but I will go into what I want is just to say is Soto did so much for that Yankee franchise, and the way that he has been treated post choosing the Mets is just kind of it's borderline unacceptable. It's something where Yankee fans have often gotten the reputation as being just being the league's most toxic fan base, and it's a well earned reputation because as we saw in 2024 in the World Series, there are times they'll just mug their right fielder trying to get a foul ball, and that's not okay. And then this is not much better in terms of the way that they've just gone out of their way to sort of throw a lot of abuse and shade, and I'm sure Soto's read none of it because Soto obviously wouldn't care, and if he was really concerned about the opinion of Yankee fans, he would have probably re-signed up with them. I just don't see this kind of behavior from Met fans. We're not great. We're not perfect. I will not go out of my way to say that Met fans have never done anything like really really rough or have said some things online. I will point to myself, and after Jacob deGrom left, I was really tight, but at the same time it was a very different situation. Jacob deGrom was a Met legend. Juan Soto, not a Yankee legend by any means. He had a great year. It was just a matter of he was there for 1 year, and then Soto had made no sort of intimations about him sticking around beyond that point. So the things that are thrown around, like, he's not loyal, he's a mercenary, these are just words that do not apply to Soto. Soto is, I think, a loyal player. I mean, he played his ass off for the New York Yankees, and truthfully, they did not have a chance of going to probably even the postseason without Soto. Soto was worth 7.9 WAR this last season, and you have to look at it. I mean, Judge is just one man. He can't do everything for them, and that lineup was just terrible. And if Yankee fans are really honest with themselves, they would be able to look at that and say, you know what, this was really a two-man show. We're now down to a one-man show, and it's not looking great for us. But we should still show appreciation for what Soto did. And then you have to also point out that while Judge was completely blowing it in the playoffs, I mean, he had a terrible postseason to the point that he made like A-Rod look really good. He had such a bad postseason at the same time that Soto was keeping it together, and people will point to Giancarlo Stanton as the big thing for the Yankees that postseason because of the way that he was hitting home runs and driving in runs. He had like 16 RBIs. Soto was really setting the table. I mean, he had, I think, 13, 14 walks, somewhere around there. And it was hitting, I think, 327, 330, around there. And 4 home runs, 9 RBIs. I believe I'm correct on that. And that ability for him to play that way in the postseason was just exactly what the Yankees really needed, particularly when their best player was shitting the bed. Let's be real here. That he was doing an absolutely horrendous job, and Soto really picked them up. So I don't think it's a lack of loyalty on Soto's part. I think it's a lack of loyalty on the Yankees fans' part. They treated him the exact way you do not treat a superstar. Even when he's left, you have to still hold out respect. That's why I feel like, when Jacob deGrom eventually pitches against the Mets, whenever that might be, hopefully, I do hope one day deGrom is able to get healthy and we can finally see him back at Citi Field. That would be lovely to see him pitching on the Citi Field mound again. I know that he'll get a huge applause. He'll get a great ovation because we as Met fans still hold a lot of appreciation for our legends, even when they move on. And guys like Daniel Murphy and Zach Wheeler, they still got great reactions when they left for free agency and went over to division rivals. And it's just not our way to kind of treat people like that, and it is, I think, sadly, kind of the Yankees fans' ways. And I'm painting with a broad brush here. It is not everyone's case. I have a friend and neighbor who was like, I appreciate what he did, but obviously he didn't want to stick around here, so be it. And this is probably a good thing, and it probably is for the Yankees fans if they could really just kind of put things in perspective, which is to say that our team was willing to put a lot of money on the line and potentially re-sign Soto. And it didn't go our way. Okay, so be it. We're going to change gears and we're going to go after some other fish in the sea. And in this case, they made huge moves. They signed Max Fried. They traded for Devin Williams from the Brewers. These are already positive steps in the right direction. They obviously still need to replace their right fielder, but this is a situation where I do feel like they have a chance to kind of look at it and say, like, okay, well, this didn't work out for us, but things can get better. And if we stop being quite so toxic, it might actually benefit them in the long run. I don't know if that would be the case. Soto is just that good a player. And as much as some people like to say, like, well, he's fat. He's not fat. Let's be very clear about that. Soto is not fat. It was an unflattering photo that they took of him and has been just had a minor media swept through where people were just looking at that photo and saying, like, oh my God, he must have gained a lot of weight in the offseason. And it's like, no, that's not the case. Like we saw him partying in a hot tub 4 days ago after he signed the contract, shirtless, no gut, jacked all as hell. This was something where it was just another stupid distraction. And it was another thing where people were trying to, just ruin it for people, ruin it for Met fans, honestly. And it's the kind of behavior I was expecting, but the level and the vitriol. I mean, what I said in my intro did not do it justice to the really disgusting things I've read. And it's just horrendous. It's terrible. I won't do it the justice of repeating it. And I'm not going to give anybody the satisfaction of repeating the terrible things. Some of it, very racially charged. Other stuff that was just disgusting in a completely different way. So I don't know what exactly would maybe change things for Yankees fans. I hope that they can kind of, with time, get better. It's going to be bad the first Subway Series. I think as time goes by, it will change. But whenever there was a Mets Yankees changeover, it doesn't happen with a star player like this. So we're in very unprecedented territory with Soto coming over to the Mets. I think there is a chance though that. It does feel like it, that the Mets are going to be taking over, because that was what Soto was saying, that there is a discussion being kind of held now that the Mets have kind of grabbed the main news here. I mean, Max Fried was a great move, but there are certainly concerns about signing a pitcher to an 8-year contract. And while Soto's coming with a 15-year contract, you're getting a guy who's going to be 26 and is in the prime of his career, has had, knock on wood, no injury issues as of late, and is really kind of picture of health. And he has been very good and very consistent his entire career in terms of that way. I really hope I didn't jinx him. We have to look at him and say, this is a guy it's worth the gamble. It really is. He is not a guy who is in any way a real risk in terms of like what you're signing to him to. And yes, he'll be 41 years old and still making $50 million. It's the price of doing business. And if the Ohtani contract had been 15 years, if that's what he had wanted, he would have signed that also. It's just the way that these things are going to go. And for us to pretend that 15 years is some horrendous thing, it's long-term security. Cohen can pay for it. He can afford it. It doesn't really matter. Don't try and throw that back at us and say, well, he's going to be 41. I don't care. Great, awesome. Like then for me, that means he'll still be on the Mets and he'll still be likely breaking like records and setting all kinds of different standards. And again, this is a superstar player. As great as guys like Piazza and Wright were, and Tom Seaver was of course a Hall of Famer. Jacob deGrom was nigh unhittable during his tenure here. Superstars are at a certain level. It's mostly pitchers that come here, like Dwight Gooden in 1985. It's very rarely a guy who is considered a top 5, maybe even a top 3 player. If you're going to say Ohtani and Judge are number 1, number 2, then Soto has a very good case to be made that he is number 3. And maybe the number 3 guy shouldn't be paid the most money, but that's just the way it worked. I mean, if Judge had been a free agent now, it would have been $800 million also. It is just the way that these things happen, and it is a timing mechanism to it all. So I refuse to kind of go beyond that in terms of like what the contract should be. It is what it is. So, it's a lot of money, but you know what? He has earned it. He has played a terrific career. He has uncanny play discipline. He is an incredible at bat to watch. And I'm excited to watch him do it as a Met. Let's take a break right there. So, coming back now to the Mets podcast, we're going to talk about what the Mets have left to do. They did their big thing. They signed Juan Soto. They have steadily added to their starting rotation with adding Frankie Montas and Clay Holmes. And I guess Holmes is going to occupy sort of like a hybrid role in this case. If it doesn't work out for him as a starter, it could go to the relief. He could go to the bullpen. He could be a really good setup man, I think, in that case. So I think the way I look at it is Stearns kind of like hedging his bets in that case. I think he looks at it as, okay, worst case scenario, we just move him back to the bullpen. In which case, I think it's a solid move. I have my concerns about Holmes pitching for a lot longer than he was, obviously, as a reliever, and he hasn't done the starting rotation thing in a while. But so be it. Holmes does have incredible stuff. I mean, really great combination in terms of his pitches and off-speed stuff is really good. But it is concerning, and there is a lessening of the quality the longer he does it. So, like, while he might rank among the stuff leaders, as Fangraphs has titled it stuff, he may rank among the leaders of those guys in terms of his stuff. It is affected by the longer he's out there pitching. The quality will lessen. So there is something to that, I think, in this case. In terms of what they have left to do, there are certainly some pieces in the bench that need to be filled. And I believe also with the starting rotation, there are at least 1, possibly 2 more moves that they can make. I'm still holding out for Sean Manaea. If Manaea can come back to the Mets, I would look at that as a huge... it's just a huge get, because how good Manaea was and how much he turned it around the second half. I mean, he was fairly average in the first half of the season, not bad, but just kind of regular. And the changing in the release point, more resembling Chris Sale. These were all fairly good moves on Manaea's part, and I think seems to be a potential sign that this is a guy who's reaching a new level, even as late in his career as he is, and he is like he's past 30, well past 30 at this point. So the Mets aren't looking for probably more than like a 3-year deal for a guy his age. So it would have to be a deal that would be probably pretty similar to, if not more than, what Luis Severino got. And Severino got so much money for a season that was not as good as Manaya's. So you have to look at that. If you're Manaya and his representation, you're going to be looking at it and say, okay, well, let's get more money than him because I was better than Severino, right? So kind of screws the Mets in that case. But we'll see how much they end up paying him. If it's like 3 for 75, like, I'm okay with it. It's a lot to pay Manaya, but it's just kind of the way it works. And if the A's hadn't been so stupid and gave Severino so much money, we probably wouldn't be in this position, but so be it. So Manaya is an option there. I think also they have been in talks with, or poking around in terms of the interest with Nick Pivetta of the Boston Red Sox. Pivetta, kind of similar to Holmes in this regard, phenomenal stuff. I mean, like, you can look at his strikeout per 9 innings ratio last year, and it was spectacular. I mean, he has really got some stuff. Hasn't had a ton of success, so this does feel like a Stearns-esque move on the Mets' part, where you're targeting a guy who has upside, but hasn't really shown it on a consistent basis. We'll see. And then there is also the rumor that came out today, which is that they are poking around Luis Castillo of the Seattle Mariners and looking at a potential trade with Castillo. See if they can get him over. The Mariners aren't really in a great position right now, so if the Mets were to give prospects probably 1 or 2 of their top 10 prospects, and maybe a good piece like a Prep 80, perhaps, that might be enough to part Castillo away from the Mariners. But there are other teams also inquiring about Castillo. So and then there's also, I think, a decent amount of rumors that Walker Buehler might be also an option for them. The main guy I wanted was Garrett Crochet, and that's not happening anymore. Crochet on his way to the Boston Red Sox now, so that's out of the question here now, unfortunately. But what we expect now is the Mets are going to make at least 1 or 2 moves left in that rotation. Probably a bullpen arm as well. It's maybe not a quality of a Jeff Hoffman. That what I'm hoping is still possibly on that case, but I expect them to go after at least one more reliever to finish out that rotation, that bullpen. Maybe a leading arm to replace Adam Ottavino, and then it goes over to you got to fill out the rest of your bench depth. I think bringing back Jose Iglesias would be a great move. I would like to see Jesse Winker back, but it's been pointed out to me that now that would give them a lot of outfielders, but I do think Winker has a quality to him that is important, and I think it's important especially with the changes that this team is making, that they keep that locker room intact. And Winker and Iglesias were such huge movers for that chemistry going up. So that there is that to take into account as well. And they will not come very expensive. Those are guys coming in probably 1-year deals, maybe 2-year deals, for single-digit $1 million. Somewhere in the neighborhood of probably $5 million for them at most. I would pay a year for either one of those guys. So certainly something to look at. And then of course there's the Pete Alonso situation. And Alonso there has not been much conjecture. There's apparently Alonso. There's maybe being targeted by the Yankees, who are also in need of getting a first baseman, and I think Yankee fans would be, certainly happy to acquire Alonso as kind of like a stick it to the Mets fans. But I think also it's not really the move that they need to be making. They need somebody who's probably a little bit more depth at first base than Alonso. Not that Alonso's bad, but I think probably they would be more interested in Christian Walker if he became available to them. But if all else fails, if they cannot re-sign Alonso, there is a chance that they could go after Alex Bregman. I don't know if that's a great move or not. Bregman, I feel like, is declining in terms of his abilities as well. So I don't know if you're getting a better asset really than Alonso, and Alonso does come with him being kind of like one of the hearts of the team. And if you move on from him, then you have a lot of new faces at that point, and it's a little bit harder to create that kind of like chemistry cohesion that we're expecting. This is a team that's expected to go to the playoffs next year. There's no like we're going to punt on 2025. They need to go to the playoffs next year with what they got, and there are certainly pieces that are not as sharp as you would like them to. There are questions about that starting rotation, questions about the bullpen, and questions about, well, the lineup is not as big a question mark, thankfully, but they still have to round out pieces of this, and if that means moving Mark Vientos over to first base and then going after somebody to fill out third, that is unfortunately still a possibility. I would like them to bring back Alonso. Not that I have anything against Bregman, who I think is a terrific third baseman, but I have my concerns. His offense has really waned these last couple of years, and he just doesn't really look like the player that he was 3-4 years ago. And it's that like sharp decline that looks even worse. I mean, like he's not like he had a bad year last year, and I think Alonso's was worse, but that's more to do with Bregman being an excellent defender. Alonso loses a lot with his defense, base running. Bregman just really talented in that regard. So it's something to look at. I don't know if I really don't know if Alonso is going to be back, because I think he's pricing himself out of his market, but we'll see as the market continues to take shape if Alonso can be added onto this team again. Which I would like. I think it gives the Mets a really strong lineup feel with Lindor, Soto, Vientos, and then Alonso as your top four. It looks great. I think it looks a lot better than Bregman. Really, honestly, like it looks a lot better with Alonso than Bregman. So that's just my 2 cents about that as well. So we have still a lot to see in terms of this offseason. I don't know if they are going to be making any more moves this month. If there are, I will be around, of course, and I'll be reporting on those as they come, and I'll be offering my opinions on what they are doing. I think they have at least one more splash in them, and if the last splash is just re-signing Alonso, then I'm cool with it. But I think they have at least one more, possibly other than Alonso. So we'll see. I'm really excited, and I wanted to say, because I came into this episode speaking so negatively in terms of the Yankee fans' reactions to the Soto acquisition. It is something where I am happy about where we are as a fan base. There is something to be said about you have to kind of toil for a long time to kind of gain the perspective and the, frankly, humility to really appreciate what you get. And when you get something really special like you did in 2024, you really appreciate how good you have it. And the Met fan base, as much as they get like derided for the way the lack of attendance and stuff like that, we are a very passionate group, and I think our passion is equal to our attention being paid. And I think when you have a great product on the fields, people will come to the ballpark. They will go, even with expenses being as high as they are, and hopefully they don't get too more expensive with bringing in a guy for $765 million. I do think the Mets Citi Field experience is terrific. I think the fan base has a lot of fun. I think everybody likes going to Met games, and I think you're going to see attendance really jump in 2025. So I'm excited to go again. I can't wait. To see. Me and my dad are already making plans to go see David Wright. Who last bit of news. I was very happy to hear that they were going to honor David Wright and retire his number. Very almost long overdue in my regard. I think they should have retired it the day that he left. He was just an incredible player. Still my favorite player of all time. And I won't ever love a player like David Wright. So we're already making plans to go to that game. I can't wait to go to that game. I think it'll be great to see and great to kind of share with my dad. And we both really loved Wright when he was playing. So I'm excited to see that. So if nothing else, I'm going to leave it at that. So Thank you very much for watching and listening to the podcast. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and enjoys themselves. And don't let those Yankee fans get you down. This was a great thing for us. So enjoy it. Have a great night.
Orange and blue running through our veins, rooting for the Mets to win to end the pains. It's a Mets podcast hosted by Michael Bayside. His views and ideas are fortified. Let's do saints, injuries and wins. We can't wait for the next game to begin. This is the theme song to the Mike's Mets podcast. This is the theme song to the Mike's Mets podcast.
Thank you for listening to Mike's Mets podcast. If you haven't already, please follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a like and a comment, it helps so much. Finally, please follow our Twitter and Blue Sky pages. You can find us at Twitter at Mike's Mets Pod, all one word, and on Blue Sky at Mike's Mets Podcast.bsky.social. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day or evening, and let's go Mets.